Hi readers, let's review why it's important to know how to close read and how close reading benefits you as a reader. Number one, it helps you to better comprehend the text. In order to avoid what I call zombie reading, it's when you read something, you read a text for like a paragraph, for example, and then you completely forget what you just read and you had to read it over. That happens to me all the time. Well, in order to avoid zombie reading, close readers have strategies that they can use to help them comprehend the text. Number two, so you can fully understand the author's message. It's really important to try to understand what the author is saying so that you don't miss key details and information. Three, to analyze a text and to think critically about it. And so oftentimes there are hidden messages in text that when you just read it once or read it quickly, you'll often miss. And so often these are really important ideas. Number four, to gain a deeper understanding of the text, which again is where you can learn a lot more information about the text or have some additional thoughts beyond what you first thought during the first read. Number five, to focus on patterns and details in the text. Oftentimes, texts have structure, they have patterns, and you can compare and contrast those. And lastly, to analyze an author's craft and grow as a writer. So learning how to closely read and become a better reader actually helps you as a writer, and you'll see how that'll happen this year. So now let's take a look at the best strategy for close reading. It is using annotation symbols. So as you can see on this anchor chart, there are several annotation symbols that we will practice using together, and then you will get good at using them throughout the year. So as you can see, the star represents when you find something important in text. Underlining is when you think there is an important keyword or detail that stands out. A check mark means, I understand this idea. A circle, that's when you circle an unfamiliar word, which we can investigate the definition. That will help you better understand the text. A question mark, I don't understand this idea or concept. An exclamation point, that's surprising, interesting, or new information that you didn't know about. And then lastly, the infinity symbol, which is a sideways 8. And this is where you make some kind of connection to the text, whether it be a personal connection of something that happened in your life or a connection to another text that you read before. And then lastly, you can mark the text by simply adding an I'm thinking statement. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of my absolute favorite poems called Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. And so I'm going to read the poem aloud to you, and then we're going to take a look at some annotation symbols that I used so that I can model to you my thinking for using those annotation symbols. Soon you'll get a chance to practice this yourself. Here we go. There is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins, and there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright. And there the moonbird rests from its flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children, they mark, and the children, they know the place where the sidewalk ends. And so as you can see, poetry is set up in what are called stanzas rather than paragraphs. And you can see Three, clearly defined stanzas. That is one type of structure of this poem. And if you look to the third line, I put a question mark at the end of that line. And there the grass grows soft and white. Let me go ahead and explain my thoughts for why I put that question mark. Here, I was a little bit confused because I don't think of grass as white. I think of it as green. So I was thinking, what could possibly make the author put white? And so I continued to read, and it says, and there the sun burns crimson bright. I circled crimson because I thought, I might not be sure about what that word means, especially if I were a fifth grader. However, I realized that it means red. Crimson is just another word for red. And then if you look at the last line, to cool in the peppermint wind, I put a check mark because I thought, ooh, a cooling wind, a cooling breeze. I can totally see how that's connected to peppermint, which is refreshing and minty. And so after a hot day, I could imagine a cool evening breeze feeling like peppermint. And if you go down to the next stanza, I put a star next to the first three lines because I really thought this was an important part of the poem that gave me some really important information. It's talking about smoke blowing black and streets that are dark. They wind and bend, and asphalt. I happen to know that asphalt means blacktop, roads. And so I thought about the city. I thought about living in the city as a child, and I thought this is really important to the meaning of the poem. And lastly, you can see I put the infinity symbol because after reading this stanza, I made a personal connection, thinking back to my childhood. And I picture this poem being about growing up, perhaps in the city, but knowing where to go to have some fun and leaving those streets and wandering into the forest, possibly, or playing at a park. And so I made a connection back to my childhood of times where I would be outside playing. And then lastly, you can see over here, I'm thinking that the author ... And so I left this here because I want you to think about what this poem means to you. And next, you are going to have an opportunity to read this poem again and create your own annotations. And you're going to need to be able to explain your thoughts, just like I did, about why you made those annotations. I can't wait to see what you come up with.